It wasn't a piece of advice that changed my life, not a book, not a lecture, not a teacher. All of those were merely catalysts. The true reaction began when I dared to look myself in the eye and admit one thing: I had never truly loved myself in the right way. I had lived as if my worth had to be proven, had to be approved, had to be validated by someone else in order to justify my existence. And because of that, my life was steered by a series of behaviors that were never truly mine: trying hard to be liked, compromising just to keep the peace, staying silent to avoid judgment, and sacrificing in hopes of being recognized. But the more I did that, the more hollow I felt, like a shadow molded by outside expectations. That was when I realized I could never build a real life if the first brick wasn't laid in self-love. Loving yourself isn't about what you buy for yourself or how you care for your body. It's about what you choose to live by. It's about whether you allow yourself to say no to what drains you, or whether you keep pretending because you're afraid of upsetting others. It's about whether you dare to go against expectations to pursue what you believe is right, or whether you still need the approving gaze of others to feel worthy. True love never comes from perfection. It comes from a decision. I will still stand by myself, even when I'm not good enough, not strong enough, not clear enough. Every major change in life begins with this decision. No one is coming to save you. The change starts when you stop abandoning yourself. You can't rewrite a new chapter if you keep living in the old one every day, blaming the past, your parents, your childhood, your circumstances. No one denies those wounds are real, but healing doesn't begin by pointing outward. It begins when you ask, from today on, do I still want to live in that repetition? If the answer is no, then you have to act differently. You must redefine your self-worth based on something other than what others think. Your value doesn't lie in the roles you carry, the money you make, or the number of people who like you. It lies in how you treat yourself every single day when no one's watching, no one's applauding, no one's noticing. A person who loves themselves doesn't need to be rescued. They know how to save themselves, not through fake toughness, but through deep honesty. I may have been hurt, but I won't let pain control me. I may have made mistakes, but I won't keep punishing myself forever. I may have been weak, but I won't live as a victim for life. The decision to love yourself is a silent but powerful turning point because it hands you back the wheel of your own life. And here's the truth that's hard to accept. If you don't love yourself, you will seek love from others in a dependent way. You'll let others define who you are, whether you're worthy, how you should live. You'll always need reassurance, always need praise, always need someone else to make you feel enough. And that makes you vulnerable to manipulation, to being used, to being hurt by careless words. But when you love yourself, you become your own reference point. You no longer need to prove, to stand out, or to compete. You know. You are worthy, even if no one acknowledges it. I want you to understand something clearly. Loving yourself is not selfishness. It's not abandoning others. It's the only foundation that allows you to love anyone else in a healthy way. Someone who doesn't know how to love themselves, no matter how hard they try, is still loving from a place of lack. They give in order to receive. They sacrifice to be recognized. They act out of fear of losing rather than from true freedom. True love begins when you no longer need someone else to fill you, because you are already full inside. So where do you start? Start by placing your hand on your chest and making a promise. From today on, I will no longer betray myself. No more betrayal by lying about your feelings. No more betrayal by living against your values. No more betrayal by staying in relationships that shrink you. Every day, you choose to stand by yourself in the smallest actions. One moment of daring to say no. One moment of choosing rest. One moment of speaking your truth. One moment of letting go of what no longer fits. That is the deepest act of self-love. Your life doesn't change because of someone else. Not a teacher, not a life partner, not a miracle can change what you're not willing to change yourself. They can open the door, but only you can walk through it. They can inspire you, but only you can create momentum. Stop waiting for someone to make you feel worthy. You've always been worthy. From the moment you dared to believe in your own value, from the moment you stopped asking for permission to exist, and from the moment you chose to love yourself as an action, not just a feeling, you can begin again, but not by chasing something new, by returning to yourself and looking deep into the mirror. The only person you need to make peace with is the one staring back at you. That is where everything begins, and that is where you'll find the power to rewrite your entire life in a way that no one but you can, because this life is yours. And only when you love yourself in the truest sense will you have the energy to turn it into a masterpiece that no one else can replicate. A life designed by you, not borrowed from anyone's expectations. Have you ever reached a milestone you once longed for, only to feel a nameless emptiness afterward? Have you ever been praised, acknowledged, and yet still felt as if you were wearing a thick mask you couldn't take off? That's because you were living by the wrong compass. You chose achievement as your guide, validation as your guiding light, but forgot the most important element, joy. Not the shallow joy that comes from fleeting satisfaction, but the deep, lasting kind that arises when you are living in alignment with your true self. Many people dive into personal growth as if it were a race. They make plans, set goals, mark every milestone, and then compare themselves to others. Every step forward becomes not a source of joy, but a measurement of whether they're good enough yet. And when the numbers don't rise as expected, when results don't come as quickly as they'd hoped, they begin to doubt themselves. They forget that goals are not meant to torment them, but to guide them toward a more meaningful way of living. And that meaning is impossible to find if every step is weighed down by stress, fear, and pressure from external expectations. I once believed that joy was a reward that came afterward, that I had to prove I was worthy, pay my dues, achieve enough, and only then would I have the right to enjoy life. But I was wrong. Joy isn't the ending, it's the beginning. It's the starting energy, the first heartbeat of a soulful life. When you choose joy as your compass, you no longer need an external reason to feel fulfilled. You don't need anyone's approval to know you're on the right path. You don't have to wait for success to begin living. You start living right now. Take a look at yourself. What makes you feel truly alive? What makes you lose track of time, feel light and fully present? Those are signals of genuine joy. And when you begin to shape your life around those things, even the smallest ones, you'll notice a subtle but profound shift. You no longer work to prove, but to express. You no longer learn to catch up, but to nourish your inner world. You no longer help others to be acknowledged, but because your heart is overflowing. Joy does not exclude effort. On the contrary, it is the most powerful fuel for perseverance. When you are joyful doing what you believe in, you're not quick to quit. When you delight in the journey, you don't need anyone to push you. Sustainable joy isn't about everything going smoothly, but about the feeling that you're living truthfully, not acting, not straining, not pretending. It is a kind of deep peace that no amount of applause can ever replace. What matters is that you are brave. Because choosing joy also means you'll have to say no to the crowded roads, the societal expectations, the prepackaged definitions of success. You'll have to learn to disappoint others so you don't disappoint yourself. You'll have to learn to slow down, to hear your inner voice again. You'll have to learn to change course, even when the old path looked dazzling but no longer makes you feel alive. It's a challenging journey, but the right kind of challenge. And there is no greater reward than living in the clarity of your own spirit. Don't confuse joy with comfort. Comfort can keep you stagnant. Joy propels you forward, even when the path ahead is uncertain. Joy isn't always pleasant. Sometimes it's the sweat you shed while doing what you love, the loneliness when you choose the road less traveled, the anxiety when you leave behind what's safe to live more truthfully, But within all that, you feel more fully alive than ever before. Remember, the happiest person isn't the one who achieves the most, but the one who clearly understands what brings them to life and dares to build a life around it. They're not people without struggles. They're people who refuse to let those struggles extinguish their inner fire. And that fire is sustained only by true joy, not by titles or shallow attention. And when you live in joy, you become a source of nourishment for others. You don't have to explain much. Your energy already leads the way. Those around you will feel that natural light and begin to question their own lives. Not out of envy, but inspiration, not out of comparison, but awakening. Because you've shown them another choice, to live from within, not to be pulled by the outside. You don't need to do something grand to prove you're living right. Sometimes it's simply that you dare to change an old habit. Dare to listen to your body. Dare to say, I don't want this. Dare to choose a slower path, but one that's more real. These are quiet but powerful choices, and they are what create a life worth living, not a list of accomplishments. So, starting today, ask yourself, what truly brings me joy? Am I living in alignment with that or sacrificing it for validation? And if I chose joy as my compass, what would I do differently right now? The answer lies with you. And the path only reveals itself when you take the first steps in the light of your inner truth, not under the spotlight of someone else's stage. You have the right to live a life that is both deep and joyful, a life that doesn't need to please the world but still makes you smile every morning when you wake up. And that's not wishful thinking. It's a real choice, one that begins the moment you stop measuring your worth by applause and start listening to the voice of your own heart. Every day you're living within a current that you often don't even notice. The flow of energy from the people you meet, the words you hear, the habits you observe, and even the invisible atmosphere surrounding you. Your environment isn't just about geography or physical surroundings. It's the totality of mental, emotional, and psychological influences you breathe in every single day. And whether you're aware of it or not, that environment is never neutral. And very natural, it's meaningless. Is either lifting you up or silently pulling you down. You might have a brilliant plan, a clear goal, even a firm will. But if you place yourself in the midst of constant complaints, skeptical glances, negative conversations, or stagnant habits, you'll soon be assimilated. It doesn't take a major conflict, nor someone directly sabotaging your dreams. Just a little delay each day, a realistic but mediocre piece of advice, a casual remark that plants doubt in your mind. That's enough to slowly steer you away from the path you once chose. On the other hand, if you step into an environment where everyone is striving to grow, where people talk about solutions instead of wallowing in complaints, where success isn't something to envy but a source of inspiration, you will be nourished. Even if you're still figuring things out, even if you're not perfect, simply being in such a space makes it impossible for you to keep living in mediocrity. You begin to think differently, act differently, respond differently, not because you're forced to, but because that environment awakens the noblest part of who you are. The question is not, am I being affected by my environment, but rather, is the environment I'm living in worthy of the person I'm becoming? Many people are trapped in toxic cycles without even realizing it, simply because they've become too accustomed to complaining, to lowering expectations, to superficial relationships, to a rhythm of life void of light. And they console themselves by saying, that's just life. But no, it's merely a distorted version of life shaped by a flawed environment. You don't have to cut everything off and start over, but you do need to be honest. Take a good look at every relationship, every space you spend time in, every conversation you frequently hear. Is it making you stronger or shrinking you? Is it expanding your vision or confining you to safety? Is it making you believe you're capable of more or making you feel like you're asking for too much? These answers won't be easy to hear, but they are the starting point for reclaiming ownership of your life. Here's a hard truth. Sometimes the person slowing your progress is your closest friend. Sometimes the words that make you doubt yourself come from family, not because they're bad people, but because they live within their own frame of reference, and their limits shouldn't become yours. You don't need to hate anyone, nor declare war, but you do have the right to create distance in order to protect your path. You have the right to not listen, the right to quietly shift your rhythm, change your responses, and redesign your mental space. Seek and nurture the connections that help you grow. People who don't just clap when you succeed, but who dare to speak the truth when you're off track. People who don't just talk positively, but live positively with consistency. People who make you want to live better, work more kindly, and be braver every day. Simply through their presence. These aren't loud motivators. They're often quiet. But their energy makes it impossible for you to return to your old way of living. If you don't yet have such people around you, don't despair. You can seek them out in books, podcasts, communities, learning spaces, public places, even online. You can be the one to start a new environment. You can build a mental ecosystem of your own where every choice, every conversation, every space you step into reminds you that you are here to rise, not to repeat. A nourishing environment isn't free. It demands that you step out of your comfort zone, that you accept initial feelings of loneliness, that you bravely say no to the things that once made you feel safe. But the price of staying in a toxic environment is far greater. It's the silent erosion of belief, the stifling of potential, and the day you wake up and no longer recognize who you've become. Remember, you're not only the product of your thoughts, you're also the product of what you absorb. And you're absorbing everything from your environment: language, expression, expectations, norms. If you're not careful, you'll slowly become a replica of the crowd around you without realizing you've lost the most unique part of yourself. You can't change everything around you overnight, but you can start by filtering who truly deserves your time, which spaces deserve your presence, and which sounds deserve entry into your mind each day. This is not selfishness, it is wisdom, because you are choosing to protect the person you are becoming. Finally, engrave this truth in your mind. No environment is harmless. If it's not helping you expand, it's constricting you. If it's not inspiring you, it's making you doubt. And if you don't actively choose your environment, it will choose for you in ways you cannot control. So begin to take ownership of your living space, not just physically, but energetically, because where you place yourself is where you are sowing the seeds of your destiny. There is a subtle trap that has led countless people astray on their path of personal growth, the trap called perfection. It wears the shiny disguise of discipline, professionalism, and high standards, but beneath it lies a mental burden that constantly makes you feel inadequate, unworthy, unfinished. You try to fix every little flaw, delay the first steps because you're not ready, avoid taking action because things don't feel just right, and while you wait to become perfect, real life quietly passes you by. Perfection is an illusion. It doesn't exist in the real world. It only lives in your imagination of how things should be. You envision the best version of yourself, flawless, unshaken, never lost, and then bind yourself to that image. But each time reality unfolds differently than you hoped, you feel like a failure. Not because you're lacking, but because you've been comparing yourself to a standard no real human can attain. Progress, on the other hand, is real. It happens in small steps. It can be measured, felt, and sustained. Progress is when you dare to stand up after a fall, when you fix mistakes instead of hiding them, when you keep going even at a slow pace. It doesn't ask you to be amazing right now. It only asks that you become a little more consistent than yesterday, a little more honest with yourself, a little more willing to take one small step each day. And if you can do that, you are already living in a way that perfection can never reach. Great people didn't build their lives through perfection. They built through progress. They learned from mistakes, accepted not knowing, and started with the small things others ignored. Day by day, month by month, year by year, they turned consistency into strength. No one remembers them for being flawless. They're remembered because they never stopped. That's the difference between someone chasing appearances and someone truly creating value. You don't need to begin with a perfect plan. You just need to begin. Action creates clarity. Action exposes weaknesses so you can train. Action builds momentum for learning. Every step, no matter how imperfect, brings you closer to the person you want to become. And if you're still hesitating because you're not good enough, ask yourself again, am I waiting to be perfect before I live? Or will I live in order to grow better? One of the most damaging effects of perfectionism is that you become too harsh with yourself. Every small mistake becomes a crisis. Every piece of criticism becomes a wound, and gradually you lose kindness toward yourself. But true growth only happens when you're able to be compassionate with yourself, when you understand that you will make mistakes, and that doesn't make you less valuable. Every person you admire today was once a beginner. But they didn't stop. Focus on what you can do today to be better than yesterday. An honest conversation with yourself. A good habit sustained for 3 days. A difficult choice you dared to face. That is progress. It may not be dazzling like a performance, but it brings the deepest kind of transformation. Progress doesn't make an instant impression. It's steady, quiet, and unwavering. But if you stay with it long enough, it will take you to places perfection never could. The truth of your capacity and your real worth. You won't escape comparison. In a world full of edited images and achievements presented as instant results, you'll feel like you're falling behind. But don't let others make you forget where you're going. Your journey is unique. Your pace is real. Look back at what you've overcome. The wounds you've healed, the limits you've pushed, the days you didn't quit even when no one noticed. That is progress, and it deserves to be honored. Each time you feel like you're not enough, change the question. Don't ask, why am I still not as good as them? Ask instead, what did I learn today? What did I stick with even though no one told me to? Where was I brave in a way I used to avoid? Those answers will return you to the true process, not illusion, not glitter, but solid and clear. Redefine success for yourself, not finishing faster than others, not getting everything right the first time, but not giving up, allowing yourself to learn slowly but surely. Knowing you're not there yet, but choosing to keep learning, repeating the right behavior even when no one's watching. That is the power of someone who doesn't chase perfection, but chooses to become better every day. And when you commit to progress, you create a positive feedback loop. Each successful step builds belief. That belief fuels energy. That energy drives stronger action. And then you take another step, not because you become perfect, but because you're no longer obsessed with being perfect. You've become free. Ultimately, remember this: perfection is a subtle trap, while progress is a real path. One exists only in imagination, the other can be lived every day. So, which will you choose? To be imprisoned by an unreachable standard, or to become a version of yourself that is growing, living, learning, and evolving day by day? Choose the right answer, and you won't need perfection to live an extraordinary life. Many people believe they haven't gone further because they're not strong enough, but in truth, a person's limit doesn't lie in their strength, it lies in their choices. It's not that you lack ability, but that you're carrying too many things that don't belong to you. It's not that you don't have potential, but that you haven't learned to say no to what doesn't serve you. And the most crucial truth, it is exactly what you don't dare to refuse that's quietly defining your limits. Think about it. How much of your time, energy, and attention each day is spent on things that don't nourish you? Relationships that add no value, commitments made just to please others, tasks you can't say no to because you're afraid of being judged. Every time you say yes to the world without being honest with yourself, you take one step away from your rightful path. You're not weak. You're simply being scattered. There is a kind of strength you can't see, but you can deeply feel. The strength of timely refusal. When you say no to the wrong thing, you don't lose an opportunity. You create space for the right one. When you reject unnecessary noise, you preserve the mental space to focus on what matters. When you turn down an attractive offer that isn't aligned, you protect your long-term path from subtle erosion. A weak person is not someone who doesn't know how to say yes. It's someone who lacks the courage to say no, because refusal requires confidence, clarity, and loyalty to yourself. It is a quiet form of self-protection. It needs no elaborate explanation, no permission. It is a firm inner statement. I know what strengthens me, and I have the right to refuse what weakens me. Yet many people grow up in systems that confuse kindness with submission. They are taught that saying no is selfish, inconsiderate, uncooperative. They learn to please, to yield, to compromise, to be accepted, and over time they lose their sense of where their boundaries truly are. They let others define what is worthy of their time, what is right to pursue. But you can't become the best version of yourself if you're living by someone else's standards. Everything you allow into your life must be selected like a builder choosing each brick for a house, not because you're arrogant, but because you are responsible for your own construction. Saying no isn't shutting the world out, it's opening the door to yourself. It isn't negativity, it's a purposeful form of positivity. It helps you preserve your purest energy for what truly deserves it. It is the highest expression of self-respect. The truth is this: no one gives you more time, no one gives you more energy, and no one bears the cost for you when you're exhausted, when you lose direction, when you veer off your own path. So, if you can't say no to what doesn't belong, you're handing your life over to others. Every unconscious yes is the forfeiting of a rightful no. And that's where limitation begins, quietly, without warning, but undeniably. Start observing. Whenever you feel drained, ask, what is consuming me without giving back value? When you feel caught in a whirlwind without clear reason, ask, does this truly serve the person I want to become? And if the answer is no, stand up and step away. No drama, no explanation, just clarity. Refusal comes in layers. Some things you can reject immediately: bad habits, disrespectful invitations, misaligned tasks. But some take time to recognize: a relationship that no longer resonates, a once relevant goal that's now outdated, a responsibility that no longer aligns with your values. The courage to say no to those familiar ties, that is true maturity. You don't need to stay busy to prove your worth. You need to be liberated to express your true potential. And that liberation begins with one simple, often underrated act: saying no to what doesn't fit. When you dare to draw a line, you'll be surprised by the energy you recover. Your mind clears, your thinking sharpens, your actions become precise, not because you're doing more, but because you've let go of the unnecessary. In the end, remember, no one moves far by carrying the whole world on their shoulders. The wise are those who filter. The strong are those who set limits. And the truly free are those who dare to walk away from what no longer aligns with their path. If you're looking for a turning point, don't look too far. Look at what you need to release. Because the moment you dare to say no is the moment you begin expanding your true limits. Not because you've become stronger, but because you've become lighter, clearer, and freer. No great journey has ever avoided failure. No dream has ever come to life without being tested by doubt, detours, or even collapse. And if you've ever mistaken failure for the end, I invite you to look again. Wasn't it in the very moments you thought you couldn't go on that you learned your most valuable lessons? The truth is, failure is not a death sentence for your dream. It's a chapter of learning, and sometimes the most important one in the book called Growth. Failure doesn't shrink you, it simply reveals who you are. When there's nothing left to lean on but yourself, when everything falls apart, unfinished goals, failed plans, unexpected rejections, You are forced to turn inward and ask, do I really want this? Do I have a reason strong enough to continue? And it is the answer you give in that moment of collapse that reveals the part of yourself you've never seen so clearly before. Don't be afraid of failure. The real danger is not learning from it. The real danger is using it as a label that says, I'm not good enough. Because failure doesn't define who you are. How you rise afterward is what shapes your character. When you see a stumble as the end, you close the door before you even have a chance to explore what's next. But if you treat it as a chapter of learning, you move forward with deeper knowledge, stronger spirit, and a more mature perspective. Many people fail not because they lack talent, but because they quit the moment they're rejected. They believe the collapse of a plan means the collapse of the self. But understand this, the fact that your plan didn't work doesn't mean your dream is wrong. It only means your strategy wasn't right. And accurate adjustments often only come after you've collided with reality, through sweat, mistakes, and real pain. Failure is a harsh but fair teacher. It shows no favoritism. It tests your real motives, your resilience, and whether you'll keep going when there's no applause. No matter how prepared you are, you won't avoid setbacks. But you can choose how you respond. You can sit down, reflect, adjust your steps, and try again. That's not starting over. That's continuing with deeper wisdom. Do you know why many successful people carry a calm that feels different? Because they've failed. They've lost enough to understand that falling doesn't erase their worth. They've cried in silence, asked themselves, am I on the wrong path? Considered quitting, but they stayed. Not because they weren't afraid, but because they understood that the real value of the journey lies in how you overcome, not just in what you achieve. You can't avoid moments of breakdown, but you can train your mindset not to be drowned by them. When you view each mistake as a chance to rethink your strategy, your thinking, and yourself, you're using failure as a lever. It helps you spring higher next time. It doesn't erase the pain, but it gives that pain meaning. If there's one thing I've learned from those who never give up, it's this. They always rewrite failure as a part of the victory story. No one writes a fairy tale without trials. No one climbs a mountain without stumbling. And no one builds a lasting career if every strong wind sends them running for safety. You are not strong because you always win. You are strong because you don't let a single loss turn you into someone who gives up. And every time you rise, quietly, tired though you may be, you declare to life, I'm not finished. I'm still here. I'm still learning. Only someone with deep faith dares to call failure a lesson. Only the courageous dare to look at their mistakes without blaming or hiding. So if you're in a season where everything seems to be working against you, don't rush to conclusions. Don't sentence yourself as incompetent, foolish, or not enough. Breathe deeply. Write down what you've learned from that failure. Place your hand on your chest and remind yourself, this chapter isn't over. I'm just learning the lesson I need in order to write a better one next. What you're going through may hurt, but that pain is shaping the structure of your spirit. Clearer, tougher, sharper. And one day, not far from now, you'll look back with gratitude for not quitting. You'll see that your dream didn't die from a stumble. It grew stronger because you didn't treat failure as a verdict, but as the most beautiful chapter in your journey of becoming. Finally, remember this. Every failure, if seen rightly, is working for you, not against you. And when you know how to learn from it, you're not just moving forward, you're advancing with a wiser heart, a steadier mind, and an unbreakable spirit. That is the true victory. There's a strange paradox in the way we live. We know how to comfort others when they're sad, encourage them when they stumble, and forgive them when they make mistakes. Yet we are often ruthlessly harsh with ourselves. We use gentle words for those around us, but let our own minds flood with criticism every time we feel tired, mess up, or simply fall short of perfection. Have you ever stopped to notice how you treat yourself when life gets hard? Kindness cannot truly radiate into the world unless it begins within. All the love, compassion, and forgiveness you offer others, if they don't have a place inside your own heart, are merely polite veneers. True kindness is a quality deeply rooted in inner integrity. It's treating yourself the way you would want others to treat you. Being kind to yourself doesn't mean letting yourself off the hook or justifying laziness. On the contrary, it is one of the most courageous acts when you're honest enough to admit you're imperfect, yet still gentle enough to lift yourself up and keep going. It's the way you remind yourself, I deserve love, even when I'm not okay. It's how you silence the toxic inner voices, not through denial, but with a simple, powerful phrase, I'm doing the best I can. You cannot love life if you hate yourself. You cannot build a healthy relationship if you secretly believe you're unworthy. You cannot sustain success in anything if your heart is burdened by punishment and shame. Every good thing you're striving toward begins with learning how to be kind to yourself through small actions, simple thoughts, and every moment you choose to listen to and understand your own feelings. Self-kindness starts with how you respond to mistakes. When you mess up, do you scold yourself mercilessly, or do you pause, take a deep breath, and ask, what can I learn from this? Truly resilient people aren't those who never fall, but those who fall, pick themselves up, and say to themselves, it's okay, I'll try again. You need to understand, your mind hears everything you think and say to yourself. If you constantly feed it thoughts like, I'm terrible, I'm stupid, I'm a failure, you are planting toxic seeds, and those seeds will grow into doubt, fear, and disappointment. But if you flip the script, if you start saying things like, I'm still learning, I tried my best, it's okay to be tired, but I'm not giving up, you are planting hope, strength, and trust. You might be thinking, but I haven't achieved anything. I don't deserve to go easy on myself. But it is precisely when you haven't achieved anything yet that you need your own kindness the most. Kindness is not a reward for perfection. It is the fuel that keeps you going when the end is nowhere in sight. People don't need light when everything is clear. They need it most in the dark. Kindness also means knowing how to say no when something hurts you, even if the other person means well. It's knowing how to set boundaries, not out of selfishness, but because you honor your mental well-being. It's being able to rest without guilt. It's being able to reject the role of always strong so you can be vulnerable, honest, and truly heal. Take a moment to reflect. How many times a day do you criticize yourself for not doing enough? How many times do you compare yourself to others and feel disappointed? How often do you ignore your real emotions just to keep the peace with others? And how often do you deny yourself what you truly need just because you're afraid to speak up? If you want to change your life from the inside out, start with what seems like the smallest thing, the language you use with yourself. Don't wait for someone else to soothe you. Be the first to place your hand on your heart and say, I understand, I'm here. I won't abandon myself anymore. Being kind to yourself doesn't make you weak. On the contrary, it helps you stand stronger. When you are gentle enough with yourself, you no longer need to prove anything. You don't work to fill a void, you work to fulfill a mission. You don't love others to be loved back, but because you are already full within, and you live not to be validated, but to be fully present in your own life. And then, when you're truly kind to yourself, something magical happens. You become more compassionate toward the world, not out of obligation, but because you understand. Everyone has tired days. Everyone is fighting battles you cannot see. And if you can learn to be patient with yourself, you'll be more patient with others. If you can forgive yourself, you'll forgive more easily. If you can love the imperfect parts of yourself, you'll stop judging the imperfections in others. The deepest revolutions always begin within. And one act of kindness, when it starts from the heart, you give to yourself, creates a ripple more powerful than any moral lesson. Kindness isn't something you do for others. It is the way you show up in the world, starting with how you see, speak to, and care for yourself. Don't wait for someone to give you permission to be gentle with yourself. Don't wait until you've accomplished something to finally say, now I can love myself. You've always been worthy of kindness, even at your lowest, because that's when you need yourself the most. Each day, the world wakes you with noise, relentless notifications, hours packed with obligations, and invisible pressure stretching your mind like a string on the verge of snapping. If you don't have a place to return to within yourself, you will be swept away from who you are. Not by a major crisis, but by 100 tiny things, messages, glances, expectations, rushes, disappointments, and if you don't actively design a daily sanctuary for your spirit, don't be surprised when your mind grows chaotic, your body drained, and your connection to self replaced by survival mode. That sanctuary is not a place. It is a ritual, a moment, a breath, a conscious, repeated act done not out of obligation, but because you understand. Your mind and nervous system deserve to settle like a lake after a storm. A daily ritual doesn't have to be elaborate. It only needs to be present. It's an anchor point in an otherwise endless schedule. It's how you tell your brain, we can pause for a moment. In a world constantly urging you to accelerate, choosing to pause is a powerful declaration. I am the one steering my nervous system, not the other way around. When you design a personal daily ritual, you send a consistent signal to your nervous system. This is a safe place. And only when your brain feels safe can it begin to heal, regenerate, and recover. Everything you're trying to improve, focus, discipline, creativity, trust, love, presence, cannot flourish on a foundation of chronic stress. A tree cannot sprout if its roots are crushed and starved. And neither can you. Your ritual might begin with 5 minutes of silence, one deep breath, a quiet cup of tea, a handwritten journal page in the morning, a whispered affirmation, a slow movement sequence to awaken your body. These aren't extra tasks to add to your day. They're reminders that you are still here. The beauty of ritual lies in repetition. Your brain needs consistency to build a sense of safety. Every time you return to your ritual, you're strengthening a bridge between your conscious and subconscious. Over time, just entering that moment, your nervous system understands, this is where I can relax. And that's when your mind begins to operate at a healing frequency. I'm not telling you that a ritual will change your life in a few days, but I can say this: if you stick to it, it will become the place you return to whenever the world becomes too loud. And having that anchor is what keeps you from drifting. You might think, I don't have time for that. But let me ask you, if you don't have 10 minutes a day to return to yourself, who are you really living for? You spend hours on work, on others, on screens, but hesitate at the idea of a few quiet minutes for your soul? It's not because you're busy. It's because you haven't made it a priority. A personal ritual is an investment that doesn't yield immediate profit, but it changes how you show up for the rest of your day. It pulls you out of reactive patterns and into conscious response. It shifts you from being controlled by your environment to becoming the one who shapes your response to it. Your nervous system doesn't know what meeting is scheduled today or which deadline is urgent. It only knows whether you're safe or threatened. And if your entire day is lived without pause, without breath, without inner space, your body will respond as if it's being hunted. Give it shelter. Give yourself a spiritual home to return to. Daily, consistently, unconditionally. A true ritual doesn't need to be grand. It only needs to be sincere, repeated with care, done in a state of presence. No screens, no rushing, no need for perfection, just you, sitting with yourself. Like an old friend you've missed for a long time. Your ritual doesn't have to look like anyone else's. It might be writing, meditating, walking in silence, doodling, reading a single profound page, or closing your eyes and listening to your heartbeat. Design it as a sacred space that only you hold the key to. And don't let anything, not even the most urgent things, intrude on that time. You don't need to seek healing from the outside if you have a strong inner ritual. Each time you return to your ritual, you're saying, I choose to trust the natural rhythm within me, not the chaos out there. And that belief, nurtured daily, becomes the root of inner resilience. Think of your daily ritual as a commitment to yourself, a promise made with no witnesses, no applause, just you, honest, consistent, awake. That's how you recover. That's how you grow. And that's how you remember something everyone seems to know, but often forget. You are not a machine. You are human. And humans need a place to rest within the rhythm of their own lives. All true transformation begins with an image in your mind, not the one you see in the mirror, but the one you see with your inner vision, clear, grounded, and magnetic. It is the better version of yourself. A person you know exists, even if no one else sees them yet. And if you are brave enough to live as though that person already exists, starting today, then the rest of your life will begin to reshape itself in the direction you've always longed for. You don't have to wait until you're perfect to live like someone mature, strong, confident, and wise. You must begin to live that way now, through each choice, each reaction, each smallest habit. Visualization is not daydreaming, it is inner action, the warm-up for every outer change. Because the brain cannot distinguish between what you actually experience and what you vividly emotionally imagine, if you visualize yourself as confident, grounded, focused, and kind, and repeat that image every day, your nervous system will begin to believe it is real. Each morning when you wake up, instead of reacting from old emotions, you can ask, if today I were already the best version of myself, how would I behave? The answer won't come from books or others. It will come from within you, a wisdom you've forgotten because you've been too busy reacting to the world. And when you begin to live according to that image, intentionally, something remarkable happens. The environment around you starts to adjust itself to the person you are becoming, instead of trapping you in the shadow of who you used to be. Don't wait for inspiration. Don't wait for validation. Don't wait for the perfect moment. There is no moment more perfect than now. The smallest action done in alignment with the version you want to become is 1,000 times more powerful than a vague wish. When you begin to speak like a confident person, choose like a wise one, act like someone disciplined, even for just 5 minutes a day, you are sending a clear signal to your brain. This is who I am. And from that moment, you stop living as a draft. You begin publishing your true self. You may feel awkward at first, you may be doubted, even ridiculed, but remember, those who change themselves don't need applause, they need consistency. It's a solitary journey, but never a lonely one, because every step brings you closer to the person you were born to become. Visualization is not just about seeing the outcome, it's about feeling every nuance, every heartbeat, every value of yourself in that state. You must ask deep questions. What time does that version of me wake up? How do they eat? How do they communicate? How do they respond to criticism? How do they act when faced with temptation? These questions aren't to create an idealized image, but to give you a clear compass for action. Because only when you see clearly can you walk straight. Someone who lives aligned with their ideal image will no longer allow themselves to act from low emotions. They don't compromise with old habits. Don't make excuses. Don't procrastinate. They act from conscious choice, not from outdated reflexes. And they are patient because they know real change is not a dramatic breakthrough. It's the quiet consistency of daily choices. Create a detailed map of who you want to become. Write it down. Say it out loud. Record it and listen to it each morning. Post it on your mirror. Practice living as if you are already that person, without needing anyone's approval, because no one else can grant you inner freedom unless you give it to yourself. And no one can make you believe in your new self if you don't dare step out of the old one. There will be days when you feel lost, days when you act out of alignment with who you want to be. But don't let that derail you. Every time you return to the image you chose, you reinforce your life's direction. Don't let one misstep make you regress. Keep moving forward and adjust as needed. Your mind is a stage, and you are the scriptwriter. If you don't take charge, your memories, fears, and judgments will write the script for you, and then you'll end up reliving the days you once hoped to escape. Don't let the past replay in your future. Give your future a new lead role and live as if you're ready to play it. What you visualize today will become what you live tomorrow, if you are consistent enough. And if you ask, how do I know I'm on the right path? The answer is simple. Observe how you feel about yourself each night. If you feel more peaceful, more intentional, more self-respecting, you're on the right path. Because the better version of you isn't loud. It only needs you to choose it one moment at a time. Remember, you don't need permission to be yourself. You only need the courage to begin. And beginning doesn't mean you're ready. It means you're willing to move forward, even if imperfect. Every action you choose today, no matter how small, is a declaration of the person you want to become. And your life, sooner or later, will have no choice but to respond to that declaration. There's a common misconception that pushes many people to their limits. They believe that only by sacrificing themselves, enduring exhaustion, do they become worthy of recognition, love, or success. They see taking care of themselves as a luxury, a weakness, or an act of selfishness. But look directly at this truth. No one can build a solid life on a cracked foundation. And that foundation is you. A machine must be maintained to run smoothly. A field must be nurtured to blossom. A human being who wants to live fully, not merely exist, needs to be listened to, restored, and nourished from the roots. Taking care of yourself is not a side task. It is central. It is the condition that allows you to create sustainable value for yourself and for others. Don't confuse self-care with indulgence. Caring for yourself is a proactive, disciplined, and purposeful act. It doesn't stem from laziness, but from awareness that your body is the only home you have, and your mind is the only lifelong companion who never leaves your side. If you neglect these two, no achievement will feel meaningful once it's in your hands. A person who knows how to care for themselves isn't just someone who meditates, does yoga, reads, and lights scented candles. They are someone who knows when to move forward, when to pause, and when to recover so they can step forward more firmly. They don't wait until they're exhausted to sleep. Don't wait until they're depressed to seek quiet. Don't wait until they're lost to rediscover their value. They actively strengthen their inner resilience because they understand true endurance doesn't come from enduring, but from preparing. Ask yourself, have you ever been so tired that you lost patience with your loved ones? So stressed that you lost control in an important decision? So busy that you forgot what you really wanted? Those moments didn't happen because you were weak. They happened because you forgot one thing. Energy creates everything. And energy starts with how you treat yourself. Self-care is not just about rest. It's how you choose your food as a long-term investment in health. It's how you restructure your sleep as a performance strategy. It's how you say no to what harms you, whether it's an invitation, a habit, or a relationship. It's how you look in the mirror and instead of criticizing, you learn to say, I am worthy of being cared for. You don't need to wait until life backs you into a corner to return to self-care. A truly mature person is someone who places this pillar at the top, not because they're fragile, but because they're wise. When you take good care of yourself, you no longer beg for help from the outside. You become more self-sufficient, more clear-headed, and most importantly, more resilient when adversity strikes. Some successes come from peak effort, but some failures stem from depleted inner strength. When you care for yourself consistently, You are recalibrating your decision-making system. You stop reacting in imbalance. You begin to act intentionally. You can distinguish what's worth doing and what should be let go. You know how to set firm boundaries with the world and how to be gentle with yourself on difficult days. A person might train for hours to build muscle, but if they neglect sleep, eat chaotically, and torment themselves with constant inner criticism, it's only a matter of time before they break down. Success without health is a trap. Productivity without nourishment is short-lived. And effort without recovery is a double-edged sword. Self-care is not an escape from responsibility. On the contrary, it's the highest form of responsibility to your own life, because only when you know how to take care of yourself can you support others. Only when you are solid inside can you resist the storms outside. And only when you keep your own flame alive can you light the way for someone else. Start small. A warm glass of water each morning instead of rushed coffee. A brief, quiet moment to breathe before turning on your phone. A stretch break in the middle of work. A kind word to yourself after a mistake. These small acts, when repeated, become pillars of mental strength. You'll realize self-care is not weakness. It's the most sustainable strategy for the long game. I'm not telling you to drop everything and focus solely on yourself. I'm telling you that if you don't protect the life energy within, you won't survive the current of pressure and expectations. And if you want to go far, truly far, you need a place to recharge, to regenerate, and to stand strong on your own feet. True success isn't what you have, it's how you feel when you get there. And you'll only feel fulfilled when you're not hollow inside. Self-care is how you refill yourself from a place of love, awareness, and self-respect. So don't be afraid to pause. Don't be afraid to place your hand on your heart and ask, have I cared for myself enough? If the answer is no, then from today you can change that. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need the perfect conditions, because every act of self-care, no matter how small, is a powerful declaration. I am worthy, and that is the true foundation of every lasting achievement. Anyone can love themselves when life is smooth, when work goes well, when the face in the mirror is glowing, when compliments rain down like sweet blessings. But real strength doesn't lie there. True strength lies in your ability to love yourself even when you feel least lovable, when you fail, when you're confused, when you make mistakes, when the whole world seems to turn away and the voice in your head becomes cold, harsh, relentlessly judgmental. That is when you need your own love the most, not punishment. Life doesn't operate on an emotional schedule. There will be days you don't want to get out of bed, moments when you don't know what you're doing, prolonged phases when you feel lost, inadequate, and unsure whether you're on the right path. And it is in those very moments that the love you have for yourself cannot just be a slogan, a motivational quote on social media, or a shallow affirmation in the mirror. It must become a life-saving act. Loving yourself doesn't mean waiting until you're perfect to grant yourself dignity. It is the ability to see your worth even as you're learning to stand back up from a mistake. It's when you hold space for the chaos inside without running away. It's when you place your hand on your chest and whisper, I'm still here, and I am still worthy, no matter what others say. Even when you're not sure you can keep going. You cannot build a strong life if your self-love only works seasonally, in the season of victory, of sunlight, of beautiful photos and shining achievements. You need that love most when winter comes, when the storm blows out every external source of motivation, when no one's clapping, when there's nothing to be proud of, when all that's left is you and your own thoughts. If in that moment you still know how to love yourself, gently but not indulgently, firmly but not coldly, then you've built the most unshakable foundation there is. Think back to the last time you fell. What was your first reaction? Did you immediately scold yourself? Did you spiral into a what-if trap? Did you isolate yourself, thinking you weren't good enough to be loved? That's not unusual. It's the reflex of a mind untrained. But starting today, you can change that. You can learn to say to yourself the very words you once wished others would say to you. You're trying. You deserve compassion. You still have value, even if you don't have results yet. Loving yourself in difficult times is not a form of complacency. It doesn't ask you to stop improving. On the contrary, it allows you to grow sustainably because it's not built on self-rejection. When you truly love yourself, you don't deny your mistakes. You learn from them in a space free of fear. You correct yourself without self-torture. You gain wisdom without inflicting wounds on your soul. Don't mistake success as the prerequisite for self-worth. It is in the journey, with all its clumsiness, imperfection, and even chaos, that you are already worthy. Because you're still moving, you haven't given up. And that's exactly why you deserve love more than ever. Loving yourself in hardship is how you reaffirm your worth without waiting for the world to validate it. It is your declaration. I don't need success to prove I matter. Because if you only love yourself when you're doing well, that love isn't truly for you. It's for your performance. It's not love. It's a conditional contract. Hard times are when life asks, are you truly on your own side? And the answer is not in what you say, but in what you do. How you treat yourself when everything falls apart. How you care for your body amid exhaustion. How you speak to yourself when the voice in your head turns sharp. How you choose forgiveness over bitterness, choosing to move forward instead of surrendering. That kind of love isn't loud, but it's enduring. It isn't fleeting, but long-lasting. It doesn't need to be seen because you feel it. And from that foundation, you continue not with weary steps, but with a heart strong enough that no one can wound you too deeply again. So I hope you won't love yourself like a passing trend. I hope you'll love yourself like a lifelong vow. Not because you're always right, always great, always beautiful, but because you're human. And humans, with all their stumbles, still deserve to be embraced with unconditional love. Life can take many things from you, opportunities, possessions, recognition, relationships. But if you can hold on to love for yourself, a love that's strongest in your weakest moments, then you've never truly lost anything. You still have you. And that is the beginning of every rebirth. You don't need a major life event, a love confession, or a therapy session to know whether you love yourself. Just look at your actions today, the way you eat, breathe, rest, and speak to yourself. They're all answering that question. Every habit you repeat daily, no matter how invisible it seems, sends a clear signal to your mind that you are either standing with yourself or working against yourself. You can't call yourself someone who loves themselves while regularly starving your body with lack of sleep, rushed meals, and toxic inner dialogues. Love doesn't reside in words. It resides in choices, in every specific act. And the frightening truth is this: the habits you consider normal are shaping your identity, either as someone who honors their own worth or as someone who quietly betrays themselves every single day. What would you think if someone claimed to love you but never showed up on time, never listened, never cared whether you were tired or joyful? Would you believe they truly loved you? The same principle applies. You can't say you love yourself if you constantly postpone what you know is good for you. If you let fear, laziness, or procrastination decide for your logic, you're sending a message that contradicts love. Self-love is not a fleeting emotion. It is a series of repeated behaviors. It's you standing up and walking away from your desk on time, even with a mountain of tasks. It's you taking the time for a healthy meal instead of grabbing junk food and shrugging it off with, "I'll fix it tomorrow." It's you saying no, even when you're afraid of disappointing someone. It's you looking into the mirror, not just to fix your appearance, but to acknowledge that you're still here, still trying, and still worthy. Every small choice is a slice of your identity. You don't need to do anything grand to prove you love yourself, but you do need to do what's right, even when no one's watching, even when you're not in the mood, even when the voice in your head says, "just this once." Every time you choose the easy way over the right one, you silently sign a contract with mediocrity. And the saddest part is, you know it. I'm not talking about perfectionism. No one can be right 100% of the time. But if you can look your habits in the eye today and honestly ask, is this proving I love myself? Then you've taken the first step in recalibrating your path. You have the right to make mistakes, but you don't have the right to switch off awareness. It's awareness that turns errors into lessons, not into loops that drag you into the blind spots of your own life. Sometimes betrayal of self doesn't show up in a dramatic act. It shows up in silence when you needed to speak up, in tolerating toxic relationships you're too scared to leave, in abandoning what once made you feel alive simply because there's no time. But who's managing your time if not you? Who's choosing the meetings, the work hours, the sleepless nights? Every choice you make leaves an impact. And the biggest consequence isn't fatigue. It's losing trust in yourself. Someone who doesn't trust themselves can't make big decisions, can't pursue long-term dreams, can't love anyone wholeheartedly. Because if you can't keep promises to yourself, who else will put their trust in you? In the end, self-love isn't about whether you feel loving toward yourself. It's about whether you act as if you are worthy of love. And when you behave that way long enough, your brain will rewire the way you speak to yourself. No more blame, no more comparison, no more force. Instead, there will be guidance, support, and loyalty to your core values. You'll begin to sense it in the smallest ways. You sit up straighter. You walk more firmly. You no longer seek validation out of desperation. You stop fearing loneliness because you know you've got a true companion by your side, yourself. So don't underestimate the small behaviors. Every time you choose meaningless late nights, choose to avoid truth, choose silence over self-protection, choose to stay in a place you know is draining you, you are telling yourself that you don't matter. And if repeated long enough, you'll believe it. But the reverse is also true. Every time you clean your space, eat healthily, say a kind word to yourself, go for a walk instead of curling up on the couch, you're rewriting that belief. You're saying, I am worthy, I have value, and I will act like it. You don't need to start with a revolution. You just need to start with one right action, right now. That action doesn't need praise, doesn't need a social post, doesn't need a journal entry. It needs only one thing: to truly serve you. If it doesn't, you're draining your own trust. Don't let self-love become a slogan. Make it a standard, a principle that cannot be compromised. Every action you take today either strengthens that value or weakens it. Choose wisely, because in the end, only you live with the consequences of every one of those actions. No one else, absolutely no one else.